Members, the Speaker.
Dora Nuna, Dora Nunawal. Yungu Nalawari, Dunamanian, Nunawalwari, Duwarawari, Ningara Dindi, Wangarali Jinian. Words I have just spoken are in the language of the traditional custodians and they translate to, this is Ngunnawal country. Today we are all meeting on Ngunnawal country. We always pay respect to elders, female and male. Members, I'd ask you to stand in silence and pray or reflect on our responsibilities to the people of the Australian Capital Territory. Thank you, members, and I call the clerk.
The following e-petition has been lodged by Ms Lee from 5 residents requesting that the Assembly call on the ACT Government to reconsider the location and services to be provided at the proposed Inner South Health Centre in Griffith. The terms of this petition are recorded in Hansard and a copy referred to the appropriate Minister for response pursuant to Standing Order 100.
Pursuant to Standing Order 98A, I propose the question that the petition so lodged be noted. So the question is that the motion be agreed to. I call Ms Lee.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and for the benefit of the chamber, this petition has actually been closed because the principal petitioner had requested a change to some of the wording, and in seeking some advice from committee support about the best process to do so. So there will be another petition on this topic which will be tabled in due course.
Thank you, Ms Lee. The question is that the motion be agreed to. All those of that opinion say aye. To the contrary, no. I declare that the ayes have it, and we'll move to ministerial statements. I call Mr Barr.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In the last 12 months, we have seen significant progress in the economic development of the Territory. Our economy continues to deliver what businesses and investors value most, that is stability, resilience and sustained growth. Gross state product has expanded by 3.5%, marking 3 consecutive decades, Mr Speaker, of economic growth for the Territory. Now, this result runs well ahead of most other states and territories and above the rate of growth experienced in the national economy. It has been supported by strong public demand, growth in real wages and high labour force participation. For fiscal 24-25, state final demand rose by 4.1%, again reflecting strong public demand and growth in household consumption. The economy has continued to perform strongly in 25-26, with state final demand increasing by a further 0.5% in the December quarter to be 3.4% higher through the year, again supported by strong public consumption and public investment. The outlook remains positive at this point, Mr Speaker. Forecasts for future growth are robust, with continued strength expected in public demand and services and a resilient and growing building sector alongside a gradual pickup in private investment. Beyond the public sector, Mr Speaker, our growth is driven overwhelmingly by service exports, which have also seen a significant increase over the reporting period of 2%. And if one section of our service export sector deserves special mention here, it is, as I have alerted the Assembly before, it is international education, which is the Territory's largest source of export income. And between 2015-16 and 23-24, that export income from international education has more than doubled, growing from around $630 million to $1.54 billion. Highlighting the sector's growing contribution to the Territory economy. But beyond international education, we have seen the remaining major service exports grow by around 18%, from just a tad under $850 million to now over $1 billion of economic contribution. This growth highlights resilience and momentum in other parts of the Territory's economy, particularly tourism, professional and business services. Tourism now accounts for 16% of our major services exports, up from 11% previously. We've seen inbound tourism surge strongly, increasing $132 million, Mr Speaker, to reach $389 million. Our labour market performance also remains strong, with low levels of unemployment at 4.3% at the beginning of this year, and the second highest labour force participation rate in the country at 71.4%. Now, these results show that the Territory has been successful in attracting skilled graduates to stay here, while educational tourism, for example, is generating significant flow-on benefits across accommodation providers, hospitality venues, retail and transport services across the city. And Mr Speaker, as we reflect back on this century, Canberra's population has grown by nearly 50% over the last 25 years. We are now approaching 500,000 residents, and the fundamentals point to continued growth for the Territory. We are focused on the delivery of 30,000 additional homes for our city by 2030, growing the housing stock from around 200,000 dwellings to 230,000 dwellings, supported by planning reform, land release and investment in public, social and affordable housing. And it is pleasing to see that we are leading the nation in housing delivery under the National Housing Accord. And of course, with more people choosing to call Canberra home, there will be a need to strategically invest in new and renewed infrastructure to support this increased population. We are pleased to see that the federal government is playing a supporting role. For example, in the future development of the Convention and Entertainment Precinct in the CBD. We know, of course, our existing convention centre is at capacity and the scale that it needs to expand to meet future demand. A new and larger facility will allow our city to host more summits, conferences, entertainment and sporting events and support further growth in our visitor economy and further jobs growth in tourism, hospitality and construction. This new precinct is a crucial part of our longer-term economic development strategy. It supports growth in non-government sectors and will assist in attracting more people to the city. The government has now completed the first stage of the funding agreement with the Commonwealth, and procurement has commenced to undertake further work to get the project to both investment-ready and shovel-ready status. The precinct, of course, contributes to what is a very significant transformation of Canberra's CBD. I turn now to the digital economy, Mr Speaker, and it is pleasing to see companies like CDC continue their strategic and significant investment in world-class infrastructure, strengthening Canberra's position as a secure and trusted location for data, cybersecurity and cloud services. CDC's expansion reflects not only growing demand, but also our Territory's unique advantages: proximity to the federal government, a highly skilled workforce and a strong reputation in national security and technology sectors. I also welcome the launch of the Activate Capital Fund. This is a new early-stage venture capital limited partnership venture capital fund delivered in coalition with Epicorp as the general partner and UNSW Canberra and local family offices as limited partners. The fund has commenced operation with $23 million in committed capital and a capacity to grow to $50 million, Mr Speaker. So over the next 5 to 7 years, the fund will be actively seeking out high potential ventures, helping to grow emerging sectors and strengthen the Territory's position as a hub for innovation, talent and investment. I can advise the Assembly the fund has been undertaking its due diligence on the first tranche of investment opportunities in its first few months and will be aiming to make investments shortly. Turning now to property and precinct development. It is pleasing to see both the Capital Property Group and the Centre Group helping to shape precincts across the Territory, delivering major commercial, residential and mixed-use developments that support jobs, attract businesses and create lively urban environments. Their continued investment in the Territory demonstrates confidence in Canberra's population growth and its long-term economic trajectory. In tourism and hospitality, we are seeing global brands recognise Canberra's growing visitor economy. The arrival of Crystalbrook through the development of their new Aurora Hotel in Garuma Place is a strong vote of confidence in the city centre as a destination, both for business and leisure travel. High quality accommodation like this, Mr Speaker, not only supports tourism growth, but also enhances our ability to attract major events, conferences and international visitors. And together, these investments are telling a clear story that Canberra is attracting private capital, businesses are seeing opportunity, and long-term investment is being made across technology, property and tourism. The significant overhaul of the CBD is also supported through the growth of our tertiary education sector, reinforcing our position as Australia's knowledge capital. Our largest export industry is expanding, and the new UNSW Canberra City campus, which members would be aware, has commenced construction in the southeastern corner of the CBD, will soon be home to around 6,000 students and educators. We are very proud to be home to world-class institutions, including UNSW Canberra, the Australian National University, the University of Canberra, the Australian Catholic University, alongside our very own Canberra Institute of Technology. And we are encouraging and we are continuing to see growth in this sector of the economy. 2025 saw the second highest level of international student enrolments on record, a little over 21,000. And we've grown well beyond our pre-pandemic numbers. And this long-term growth does matter. Each additional student not only represents a potential future researcher, entrepreneur, community leader, worker, but we've also welcomed the favourable Commonwealth policy settings that have helped expand our international student capacity. At the same time, Mr Speaker, we seek to strengthen pathways between vocational and higher education, including new collaborations between the Canberra Institute of Technology and the University of Canberra. This is important because the workforce of the future will be defined by flexibility, by lifelong learning, and of course, increasingly strong connections between education and industry. Now, as I touched upon at the beginning of this speech, tourism continues to play a major role in our economy. It's an industry that now contributes almost $8.5 million every day, Mr Speaker, to the Territory economy. For the year ending September 2025, we welcomed approximately 4.5 million visitors. They spent $3.1 billion across our accommodation, hospitality, retail, tourist attraction and transport industries, which in turn supported tens of thousands of jobs in our city's economy. The economic contribution from tourism supports growth in jobs, in new businesses and in business prosperity. Evidenced by the fact, Mr Speaker, that 1 in every 13 workers in the Territory is employed in tourism, representing 22,200 direct and indirect tourism-filled jobs. It's worth noting also that tourism-related businesses account for 1 in every 8 businesses in the Territory, totalling 4,804 on the latest data, contributing to us being ranked second nationally for tourism business growth over the last 5 years. In seeking to build on this and our long-term success in growing our tourism sector, in December last year I launched Phase 2 of the Tourism 2030 strategy. This strategy has an updated and ambitious objective to grow visitor expenditure in the Territory by an additional $1 billion over the next 5 years. Of course, in this context, a thriving tourism industry relies on ease of access to our city. And it is for this reason that we remain very focused on making it cheaper and easier for people to travel to and from Canberra. Easier access means more visitors, Mr Speaker, more students, more business delegations and more trade in Canberra, increasing investment and supporting businesses, events, hospitality and the broader tourism sector. Now, land transport delivers a significant volume of activity for Canberra. Our biggest domestic market is Sydney, and most people who visit from Sydney are using a form of land transport. But for most of the rest of Australia, and of course all of the world, the government recognises that aviation is important. We'll continue to work closely with the Commonwealth and the New South Wales Government on Infrastructure Australia's priority project, being the Canberra to Sydney railway line. But flying is, of course, how most people get here. Investment in our aviation sector has seen significant returns. over the last 4 years, and year to date to 25-26, Visit Canberra has been very active in running marketing campaigns, 25 of them, Mr Speaker, with an average return on investment of 117 to 1, contributing $236.8 million to the visitor economy. And this work, often conducted in partnership with Canberra Airport and airlines, has supported a significant expansion in the domestic aviation network in 2025, and now increasingly an expansion in our international aviation network. We've already welcomed Virgin Australia's announcement of its first direct international services from Canberra, going to Bali, and Link Airways' announcement of a further connection to the great state of Tasmania, the northern part of that state being Canberra to Launceston direct. This means we are the most connected we have ever been, Mr Speaker, to more domestic and international destinations than ever before. But we do need to continue to engage with the airport, with the Qantas Group, with Virgin Australia and with the smaller regional airlines in our nation to further connect us directly to other capital cities, to major population centres, and we've identified Adelaide for more frequent services, the Sunshine Coast for direct services, and Cairns for direct services as major population centres that would benefit from more services direct from Canberra. And following a very productive meeting with the West Australian Tourism Minister on the sidelines of the Australian Tourism Awards, we'll be working with them on Canberra-Perth services, which I know the Leader of the Opposition might appreciate given his family connections in the West. We will also focus on other major regional population centres that are not currently serviced. This work is critical to the tourism sector and to its ongoing economic success. Mr Speaker, tourism is ultimately about confidence. Confidence that visitors will choose our city, that businesses will invest, and that all of this comes together to bring benefit for our community. And this is important. At the heart of all of this progress is a simple goal: to ensure that Canberra remains one of the best places in the world to live, study, work and build a future. Strengthening our city's position as a distinctive international travel and export market will be a key driver of our success. So from billion-dollar international education exports to cutting-edge technology companies winning customers around the world, our jurisdiction is proving that knowledge and innovation are indeed powerful export commodities. Our international engagement strategy is central to leveraging these strengths, seeking to open new doors for trade and collaboration, whilst also presenting opportunities to engage with industry to attract higher-yield travellers, international students, families and friends, and visitors linked to business and government travel. And through making targeted investments and through important strategic partnerships, we seek to build an economy that is outward-looking, that's resilient and inclusive. We are, as a city, continuing to evolve, more diverse, more dynamic, with a strong public sector at its heart, but a growing private sector, a growing innovation ecosystem, and alongside this economic development progress, the delivery of city-shaping infrastructure that makes us one of the most livable cities on earth. I present a copy of the paper, Mr Speaker, and move that the Assembly take note of it.
Thank you, Chief Minister. And the question is that the motion be agreed to, and I call Mr Parton.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, sometimes it's difficult to ascertain whether the Chief Minister is appearing as an illusionist or a stand-up comedian. And on many occasions, he's doing both. When it comes to baronomics, there's a sort of a Houdini feel to it. Because at the core of every bar budget, and not much has changed with Mr Steele in that role, at the core of every ACT Labor budget, there's this whole now you see it, now you don't feel. You thought there was a surplus here, but it turns out there's not. The comedy component comes in, I think, when we have the political leader of the Territory making such absurdly positive claims about how we're tracking, when most Canberrans are fully aware that we are in an uncontrollable nosedive and the ground is rushing towards us much faster than any of the passengers can bear, and yet we've got Mr Barr sitting in the pilot's seat making an announcement to the passengers that everything's okay. He's turned off the seatbelt sign. He's turned off the seatbelt. It's all fine. It's all going to be okay. Is he David Copperfield or is he Jimmy Carr? And it would appear that he's both. It's truly bizarre that in the space of a few short weeks we've had two major statements on how the Territory's tracking economically, and they are both completely different. This is radically, radically different, because the respected economist Saul Eslake released his interim report for the Select Committee into Fiscal Sustainability in recent days, and he painted I don't know how to summarise it. He painted this dire picture of a jurisdiction that was almost heading towards failed state status. But within days, we've got this sunshine and lollipops report from the Chief Minister. Today, we have more than $17 billion in Territory debt. It's going to cost $600 million a year to service the debt. It's going to get worse. Interest rates are on the rise. It's going to get even tighter. Within 2 years, we'll be paying $1 billion a year in interest, compared with the total Territory spending of $10 billion. It's remarkable. It's remarkable. And now we're feeling it on the ground. We saw that Productivity Commission report from earlier in the year, which clearly alluded to the fact that we're past the point that this jurisdictional fiscal squeeze is being felt in the provision of day-to-day services. And again, I refer to the Saul Eslake interim report, and I'm going to quote directly from Mr Eslake: the fiscal position of the ACT's general government sector has deteriorated over the past decade, particularly since 22-23. The deterioration in the ACT's fiscal position over the past decade is entirely attributable to policy decisions. Again, I want to repeat, the deterioration in the ACT's fiscal position over the past decade is entirely attributable to policy decisions. So despite Mr Barr's upbeat words, local households are struggling with affordability, lower income families are being crushed, local businesses are barely surviving, many of them are closing down, and the Commonwealth has shown quite clearly that it's not willing to pick up the tab. The Territory's fiscal position is poor and it's only getting worse. The speech from Mr Barr celebrates public investment because there's a fair bit of that. But it doesn't really address how it's being funded, what it means for debt. It doesn't really address what it means for the long-term fiscal position. Where's the money coming from? The omission is extremely significant given the reliance on government spending to drive growth rather than looking to grow productivity. Major projects like the convention precinct are presented as economic drivers, but they do remain in the early stages. Procurement and shovel ready, there's no timeline. There's no cost transparency. There's no evidence that these projects will deliver the promised economic returns. Saul Eslake reports that infrastructure projects have been completely funded by debt, and he's right. The rebound in tourism largely reflects a post-pandemic recovery rather than new economic strength, and certainly stakeholders that I've spoken to in the space are of the belief that the government's not playing a large enough role when you compare us to similar-sized jurisdictions like the Northern Territory and Tasmania. And, when you see the sort of funding that the Northern Territory and Tasmania are putting towards tourism as compared to ours, there's a stark difference. But presenting this as structural growth ignores that visitor numbers and spending are still vulnerable to external shocks and cost pressures, particularly given Canberra's accessibility challenges. The government presents 3.5% growth as a standout result, but it fails to acknowledge that much of this is driven by government spending rather than a genuinely expanding economy. An economy propped up by public demand is not the same as one that's powered by productive, self-sustaining growth. The Chief Minister continues to deliver good news, but nobody believes him anymore, Mr Speaker.
Thank you, Mr Pun. The question is that the motion be agreed to. All those of that opinion say aye. The contrary, no. I declare that the ayes have it, and I call Ms Berry.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm pleased today to provide the Assembly with an update on the ACT Government's implementation of Strong Foundations, our system-wide program to establish a consistent and evidence-informed approach to learning across all ACT public schools. While Strong Foundations has a strong focus on literacy and numeracy, the key message we all received from Literacy and Numeracy Inquiry was that for our kids to thrive, we need one shared approach to learning. I'm proud of the progress that our schools have made. When visiting our primary schools, you can really see the changes. Listening to advice from the Literacy and Numeracy expert panel, the government adopted a phased implementation approach. Our Phase 1 plan was released in September 2024. Good and sustainable change begins from a shared understanding, so the public education system is taking the time to support our school leaders and teachers to understand the evidence behind Strong Foundations. By providing teachers with clear guidance, shared tools and high-quality resources, Strong Foundations will make it easier to plan and teach and respond to student needs while reducing duplication and unnecessary workloads. Last year, the new learning and teaching policy was launched, providing the clear direction for the new system approach to learning. For our schools with a long history of local decision-making, this isn't big but an important change. The policy was supported by practical guides for educators covering what to teach, how to teach it and how to assess what students have learned. The guides help educators to have a shared understanding of effective teaching. In addition, a more specific approach to literacy and numeracy has been developed, currently being reviewed by school leaders and national experts. A specific approach to literacy and numeracy, curriculum resources and evidence-informed professional learning will support learning to be more consistent across all public schools. Through Strong Foundations, the government has also invested $2.4 million in quality-assured materials, including making sure that there are decodable readers in every ACT public school. Decodables are supporting explicit teaching of phonics and early reading skills and align with the research that tells us what works best for children learning to read, something I've also been able to see in person. Last year, the Year 1 phonics check was successfully rolled out across all public schools. This is critical reform, enabling teachers to identify early reading difficulties and provide targeted support when it's needed most. And this year, schools are implementing a new assessment schedule, another big change for our system. This means that primary and high schools will test students at the same time across phonics, literacy and numeracy. New assessments were trialled last year and are providing a clear check for teachers so that they can better identify student needs. This gives families confidence that learning needs are being picked up and addressed. In late 2025, former members of the expert panel conducted an independent review of the Strong Foundations implementation. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Professor Delgado and his colleagues for their work and constructive feedback. Their insights have informed our planning for Phase 2, which shifts from the focus from policy and design to practical support in schools. The review report has now been published on the Education Directorate website. Phase 2 will include expanded coaching, professional learning and the rollout of more curriculum and assessment resources. It will also include a pilot of the new multi-tiered system of support so students who need additional help can receive the right support at the right time. Education reform takes time and meaningful change cannot be rushed. Strong Foundations is being implemented carefully and collaboratively with a strong focus on sustainability and impact. By continuing to back our schools and teachers, the ACT Government is giving every child in the ACT public schools the strong foundations that they need to thrive. Mr Speaker, I present a copy of the paper and ask that the Assembly take note.
Thank you, Ms Berry. And the question is that the motion be agreed to, and I call Ms Lee.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I note the update the Minister has provided in relation to the release of the independent review of Strong Foundations implementation, something that I will be very interested in reading through. But, Mr Speaker, let's not forget how and why we got here. For years, this Labor government ignored the evidence and the advice from experts that showed that education outcomes under this Labor government were not where they should be. Despite the best efforts of our hard-working teachers, this government presided over results that gave cause for concern, including that 1 in 3 15-year-old students in the ACT fell below the Australian proficiency benchmark for reading. And in 2022, 1 in 5 Year 9 students in the ACT were at or below the NAPLAN national minimum standard for reading. It was only following a motion in this chamber by the Canberra Liberals about these issues that the minister was forced to act and announced an expert panel to conduct an independent inquiry into literacy and numeracy education in the ACT, something that was welcomed across the board. And the findings of the expert panel, Mr Speaker, were clear. That to achieve true equity and excellence in education, the ACT needed a system-wide approach to curriculum, teaching, assessment, targeted support and professional learning. The expert panel identified wide variation between schools in teaching methods, assessments, resources and even basic tools to track student progress. And importantly, it highlighted the undue pressure on our teachers. The Canberra Liberals welcomed the minister's commitment to adopt all 8 recommendations of the expert panel. However, we remain concerned about how these recommendations are being implemented in practice. Stakeholders, from teachers to parents to school leaders to volunteers to staff, have also raised concerns regarding implementation, regarding funding and regarding teacher support of strong foundations, and we share those concerns. We also remain concerned, Mr Speaker, about the rollout of multi-tiered systems of support, something that parents have highlighted repeatedly as a priority. And in answers to questions that were asked by Ms Carrick and myself yesterday, I don't think anyone in the chamber was reassured about where things are at on that front. As I said earlier, Mr Speaker, we will be carefully reviewing the independent assessment of the Strong Foundations implementation, and I look forward to making further comment once we have had a chance to review that carefully, noting that as at this morning when the statement was circulated, I don't think it was available on the website at that time. I do also put on the record, Mr Speaker, my thanks to the members of the expert panel in not only their initial work in coming up with their report and the recommendations, but of course their ongoing commitment to ensuring that.
Thank you, Ms Lee. And the question is that the motion be agreed to. All those of that opinion say aye. Contrary, no. I declare that the ayes have it. I call Ms Orr.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, I rise to update the Assembly on the response of the ACT Government to the December 2025 and March 2026 announcements of Australian Pesticides and Veterinary Medicines Authority about restricting the use of second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides in Australia. From the outset, this government is very glad to welcome the proposed changes to the use of general anticoagulant rodenticides, which I will now refer to as SGARSs. These changes will better protect Australia's native wildlife from the harmful impacts of SGARSs. And Mr Speaker, for those unfamiliar, rodenticides are poisons which are manufactured into bait and used to control rodents such as rats and mice. There are several types of rodenticides approved by the Australian Pesticides and Veterinary Medicines Authority, which I'll be referring to as the authority. One type of anticoagulant rodenticides are the first-generation anticoagulants, rodenticides, otherwise known as FGARs. And FGARs are multi-dose anticoagulants, meaning that rodents must consume these baits over multiple occasions to consume a lethal dose. As FGARs break down over time in rodents, there is less chance of secondary poisoning occurring in non-target animals if they eat rodents poisoned with an FGAR. The government recognises that FGARs play an important role in controlling rodents and protecting Australia's agricultural resources, and rodenticides help to protect crops, livestock feed and infrastructure from rodent damage. ACT farmers, businesses and households are likely using FGARs throughout their usual course of business. By comparison, SGARs are single-dose anticoagulants and substantially more potent than FGARs. A lethal dose can be ingested in a single feeding and take longer to break down. This presents a higher risk of secondary poisoning to non-target animals in the food chain. Mr. Speaker, the impact of SGARs on native fauna has been an area of active national research, including by the ACT. A total of 153 liver samples were collected opportunistically from deceased or euthanised wildlife from across Australia and analysed by Edith Cowan University. The key finding of this research is that 68% of all sampled animals had SGARs in their system. In many animals, more than one rodenticide was detected in the liver tissue. Concerningly, 7 species which tested positive for SGARs included the endangered spotted tail quoll and eastern quoll. SGARs were also detected in insectivores and omnivores, including high proportions of brush-tailed possums, sulphur-crested cockatoos, and common birds like currawongs and magpies. 2 first-generation anticoagulant rodenticides were also detected in the samples. Mr. Speaker, the ACT is proud to have contributed to this research on the harmful effect of SGARs on native wildlife. The ACT contributed samples to the research published in 2025 on anticoagulant exposure in native Australian marsupial carnivores for all SGARs currently used in Australia. This was the first published example of anticoagulant rodenticides in dressured marsupial carnivores, and sadly 50% tested positive, 33% at sublethal doses and 17% likely succumbed to anticoagulant rodenticides. More recent research led and supported by the ACT has detected SGAR contamination across multiple native species, including threatened species, indicating that existing controls do not prevent exposure. These findings and previous scientific studies published domestically and internationally support the importance of the authorities' recent announcements. Mr. Speaker, it is important for the Assembly to note that due to the Mutual Recognition Act 1992, the ACT is legally unable to take unilateral action to regulate the sale of SGARs. As such, this government will take the approach of supporting the authority in their work, which is most prudent and appropriate. The authority's original December 2025 announcement concluded that the way products containing SGARs are currently used also risks non-target animals, including native wildlife. The authority subsequently announced in March 2026 that SGARs will be declared restricted chemical products. As Minister with Portfolio Responsibility for Nature Conservation, I'm extremely pleased with the authority's announcement. Mr. Speaker, this declaration will enable tighter controls on the purchase and use of SGARs, including restricting access to individuals who meet specific training and licensing requirements. In addition to the declaration that SGARs will be considered restricted chemical products, the authority has also announced that the registration of all products containing SGARs will be suspended for 1 year from the 24th of March 2026. This suspension will enable stricter controls on the use of SGARs to be implemented quickly, whilst broader measures to support the potential restricted chemical products are progressed. This government appreciates the authority is moving quickly to restrict the use of SGARs to protect Australia's native fauna, pets and livestock, and strongly supports a suspension while improved controls are developed and implemented to prevent the clear harm that is otherwise occurring to native wildlife. To formalise the ACT's position on SGARs to the authority, the ACT's Conservator of Flora and Fauna has made a submission to their review on behalf of this government. I'm aware that the Conservator has sought the advice and input of the ACT's Independent Scientific Committee on the submission, and I thank the Scientific Committee for their valued and considered input as always. And I'm pleased to, along with my ministerial statement, table the Conservator's submission here today. In closing, Mr. Speaker, this government strongly supports the authority's announcement SGARs will be declared restricted chemical products. The cancellation of some SGARs is also appropriate. The government acknowledges and thanks the ACT's conservation scientists and the ACT Scientific Committee for their work to support national research on the harmful effects of SGARs across Australia that has led to this pleasing announcement by the authority. We're a small jurisdiction and have a right to feel proud about our strong engagement in national efforts to protect native wildlife from all threats, including SGARs. And I look forward to further opportunities for the ACT to provide the authority input and feedback as stronger controls and regulation of SGARs are developed and implemented. I now present the government submission to the review of the second generation anticoagulant rodenticides and a copy of the statement, and move that the Assembly take note of the paper.
Thank you, Ms Orr. And the question is that the motion be agreed to. All those of that opinion, Ms Clay.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm really happy to hear the update from the Minister on SGARs today. As a long-term advocate for native wildlife, I've been advocating for banning their use for a long time now. That's been part of the Greens platform. And we've got really strong advocates in organisations like ACT Wildlife and Wombat Rescue, and a lot of community members who have been agitating on this issue. I wrote to the Minister in December about the impact on native wildlife and animals that these poisons have. Native animals like kestrels, quolls, currawongs, possums, magpies, owls and eagles can feed on poisoned insects and rodents and suffer secondary poisoning and a horrific death. I asked a question on notice in February if the ACT Government was considering banning them, and would the Minister advocate to the authority to prohibit the sale of SGARs? The Minister's answer last week was a little disappointing. The Minister responded that the ACT Government had not formally considered banning the public sale of SGARs, but were aware the authority were reviewing rodenticides. Now, a few days later after that, after their 4-year review into rodenticides, the authority has certified it's in the public interest for chemical products containing SGARs to be declared restricted chemical products, and we've of course heard that there will be a suspension coming. This is a fantastic move. I'm delighted to hear the ACT Government supports that statement. I spoke yesterday about how in 2021 I moved a motion asking Government to explore how to ban non-animal friendly netting and how we have taken moves to do that. And look, I understand there are complications with the Mutual Recognition Act, but we have overcome those in one situation. So if for whatever reason after that suspension we find that there is not going to be permanent bans on sale, I would encourage the Minister to go and have a look at that prior work and see how the ACT can do it, and then make a conscious decision as to whether the ACT should ban SGARs. But it is great to see that we are taking steps absolutely in the right direction. It's clear that public pressure from our environmental experts is working, and I really look forward to the ACT Government now taking those tangible actions to suspend and regulate and hopefully ban SGARs to make sure that we are protecting our native wildlife.
Thank you, Ms Clay. And the question is that the motion be agreed to. All those of that opinion say aye. Contrary, no. I declare that the ayes have it, and I call Dr Patterson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. As Minister for Women, I rise today to deliver a statement to the Assembly on the status of women and girls in the ACT. Each March, this statement is delivered as part of the Government's acknowledgement of International Women's Day. Firstly, I would like to recognise that in this statement, when I refer to women and girls, I do so inclusively. I'm speaking of cis and trans women as well as non-binary and gender diverse people. At a time when trans and gender diverse people are facing growing hostility and attempts to roll back their rights as in many parts of the world, it is important that we are clear about our values. In the ACT, trans and gender diverse people are an essential part of our community. Their rights are human rights, and they are entitled to live safely, openly and with dignity. This statement also recognises that women and girls in our community are not one single group. It speaks to the experiences of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women, queer women, women from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds, women with a disability, older women and young women. Together, their experiences provide the benchmark for our efforts to achieve gender equality in the ACT. This year's UN Women's Australia's theme for International Women's Day is Balance the Scales. The theme highlights that every woman and girl, regardless of background or identity, should be safe, heard and free to shape their own lives. The ACT Government is committed to balancing the scales through practical, impactful policy and programs which ensure every person is afforded an equal chance to achieve their full potential. This theme calls on us to reflect on the significant progress we've made towards gender equality and the work we still have to do. Throughout 2025, the ACT Government continued to deliver numerous initiatives to balance the scales for women and girls in Canberra, guided by the priorities set out in the Third Action Plan 2023 to 26 under the ACT Women's Plan 2016 to 2026. I'm pleased to say that 15 of the 30 actions under the Third Action Plan have been completed and the remaining 15 are well underway. The actions completed during 2025 represent real, practical progress towards building a safer, more equitable community for everyone by including, mandating and implementing minimum nursing and midwife to patient ratios in public women, youth and children's services across the ACT, to continue to monitor and make amendments to the Assisted Reproductive Technology Act 2024 in response to community feedback, to support programs to encourage women and girls to consider careers in space, to funding the YWCA's delivery of the Confidence, Care and Clarity program to support female identifying and non-binary people into employment, training and education. And the 10-year Women's Plan comes to an end in 2026 and an evaluation of the plan and its 3 action plans is underway. The evaluation report will be completed soon and will inform the development of the next plan supporting gender equity. Mr. Speaker, today I'm pleased to outline some of the significant work achieved during 2025 to build a fairer, more equitable society for all Canberrans. We are delivering programs that promote health, well-being, safety and inclusion, leadership and workforce participation and housing security. In the area of health and well-being, the ACT Government continues to lead the nation in initiatives that uphold dignity and improve essential health services. The ACT is the first jurisdiction in Australia to count babies in the maternity ratios, delivering safer care for mothers and newborns. Canberra Health Services implemented midwifery staffing ratios in August 2025 and continues to monitor compliance. Despite national workforce shortages, the ACT Government is actively recruiting to strengthen workforce capability and maintain safe, timely maternity care, as well as working with the Australian Nursing and Midwifery Federation to improve employment conditions. Significant progress has also been made under the Maternity in Focus First Action Plan, with 58 actions across 21 goals largely completed. Initiatives include the Maternity Experience Survey, co-design of a birthing on country model in partnership with the Cultural Governance Group, and scholarships to build workforce capacity. The ACT Government has strengthened GP shared care and advanced a perinatal mental health scoping study for a residential mother and baby unit. These initiatives demonstrate the government's commitment to delivering safe and inclusive and women-centred care. Our commitment to inclusive care extends to expanding gynecological services, including working to reduce wait times and improve services across the Canberra Endometriosis Centre. Cervical screening testing has also been introduced through midwifery-led antenatal clinics funded through the National Strategy for the Elimination of Cervical Cancer. The ACT Government is also strengthening the Assisted Reproductive Technology Framework to ensure that it not only continues to support the rights of donor-conceived individuals, but also meets the needs of women and birthing people who require ART to have children and grow their own families. The ACT Government has introduced amendments including to address issues related to gamete supply, which is of particular importance to solo mothers and the LGBTIQA+ community. Perinatal mental health remains a priority for the government. The stepped continuum of care for perinatal mental health in the ACT was finalised in June last year and has enabled the government to progress a feasibility study for a 6-bed perinatal mental health unit aiming to address an unmet need for specialist and therapeutic mental health support for birth parents and their partners. This will be supported through $732,000 from the last year's budget, and the 2025 budget also included funding for the Perinatal Wellbeing Centre, the Perinatal Mental Health Alliance and Intensive First Nations case management supported through Clybucka Dreaming. These initiatives ensure timely, culturally safe and trauma-informed care for families. The ACT's no-cost abortion scheme continues to improve access to reproductive health care. Between its inception in April 2023 and June 2025, the program provided 1,414 surgical abortions, 1,542 medical abortions, and 846 long-acting reversible contraceptives at the time of abortion at no cost to those accessing the program. The Women's Health Survey Matters survey of women's health in the ACT in 24-25 noted the improved access to abortion in the ACT as a key improvement over this period. However, the report also highlighted areas of need in women's health that continue to require attention. Safety and inclusion are fundamental human rights, allowing all Canberrans the opportunity to participate in community life. In 2025, nearly 2,800 women and non-binary people living in Canberra shared their experiences through the YWCA's Canberra's Our Lives Women in the ACT survey, with 17% of all survey respondents reporting they had experienced violence in the last 12 months. Young people aged 16 to 19 were the most likely age bracket to experience this violence. People who are subjected to violence experience ongoing trauma, fear, and significant health impacts which can limit their ability to work, study, and participate in social activities. We must continue to drive initiatives to prevent and respond to domestic, family, and sexual violence, creating safe spaces that foster inclusion. Creating safe spaces and fostering inclusion is critical, and it's how the government and community ensure every woman and girl in the ACT can thrive and contribute without barriers. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to report that the work is well underway on the strategy to prevent and respond to domestic, family and sexual violence in the ACT. The strategy will take a whole-of-government and whole-of-community approach, promoting the safety of all Canberrans in their homes, relationships and communities. Consultation throughout 2025 with specialist sector services, Aboriginal community-controlled organisations, community partners and government agencies has informed the listening report to guide the development of the strategy. The ACT Government will continue to invest in frontline domestic, family and sexual violence responses, guided by the forthcoming strategy to promote safety and reduce gender-based violence, reflecting our unwavering commitment to ensure frontline services are adequately resourced and create safer communities for all Canberrans. I look forward to releasing the strategy in mid-2026. The strategy and its actions will prioritise programs and investment across all stages, including work to prevent future violence. In education, the Gender Equality in Schools initiative has delivered significant professional learning to school staff and stakeholders over the past year in support of this goal, including a masculinity and student wellbeing forum for the teachers, school leaders and community partners. Respectful relationships education is being implemented across schools and is an exciting opportunity for schools to promote healthy relationships, challenge harmful stereotypes and create a culture where wellbeing and equality are prioritised. In 2025, the ACT Government also continued the pilot implementation of the Period Products and Facilities Access Act 2023. This program commenced in 2024 and provides free period products to a range of locations across the ACT. In 2025, the pilot rolled out to participating ACT government schools, which included primary, high school and colleges, public hospitals and health centres and the CIT campuses. The program continued to be available at public libraries, courts, ACAT, child and family centres, child development services and the Housing ACT Service Centre. The program was evaluated during 2025 with several hundred community members providing feedback on the value of the program and suggestions for improvements and expansion. I want to share one of these responses to the Your Save consultation, which I think highlights the importance of the program. Having access to period products is important because it makes a huge difference to my comfort and sense of dignity. There are a lot of reasons why people may not have period products when they need them. In 2025, the ACT Government continued to upgrade sporting facilities to be female-friendly, encouraging greater participation in sport by women and girls. To date, 40 pavilions have been upgraded. Planned future upgrades will extend the program to Chisholm, Ainslie, Hughes, Reid, Griffith, Kaleen and Macquarie. The The ACT Government reactivated Boomanalla Oval, which has provided additional facilities to meet the growing demand from the ACT sporting and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, including increasing participation of women in sport. Part of this is a new community building which offers a safe and welcoming space for gatherings and cultural connection. The ACT Government will be establishing an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community-controlled interim board to guide the future of Boomanalla Oval. The Gender-Sensitive Urban Design Framework and Toolkit, which was identified as an action under the ACT Women's Plan, is a profoundly positive step forward in setting the highest benchmarks for public spaces, ones that are equitable, inclusive, accessible and safe for everyone, in particular women and girls, gender diverse and other marginalised people. In 2024, the Gender-Sensitive Urban Design Framework and Toolkit continued to inform upgrades to local shops and active travel infrastructure, including the Evet, Narrabundah, Monash and Macquarie local shops and the Corwell and Lanyon Group centres. I've spoken extensively in this place around the importance of gender-sensitive urban design framework and toolkit being business as usual to ensure our public spaces are safe and accessible. In the ACT, we're also celebrating women's contributions to Canberra's history and supporting their visibility by increasing the number of public artworks depicting women. In April 2025, Melbourne-based artist was commissioned to create a bronze artwork honouring Stasia Dabrowski, OAM, a dedicated community volunteer and a local Western Creek resident. The artwork will be installed in Garima Place in 2026. In April 2025, a positive duty to eliminate discrimination, sexual harassment and unlawful vilification under the Discrimination Act 1991 commenced for ACT government entities. This duty will also apply to a range of other people and entities under the Act from April 2027. The reform imposes a legal obligation on organisations, businesses and some individuals to take proactive and meaningful steps to prevent discrimination, sexual harassment and unlawful vilification from occurring. This reform was part of the ACT government's efforts to modernise discrimination law and make Canberra a more inclusive, progressive and equal place for all Canberrans. Embedding gender equity in workplaces remains a priority for the government. As outlined in the Third Action Plan, the government has developed and implemented the ACT Public Service Gender Equity Strategy 2024 to 29. And in 2025, activities continue to progress this strategy. During 2024-25, 7 directorates reported that they had a gender action plan in place and 2 directorates had revised or draft action plans awaiting final endorsement. All directorates reported having undertaken activity to support advancing gender equity. Through the continued delivery of the ACT Public Service Women's Mentoring Program, the ACT government is leading by example in advancing gender equity by investing in the development of women within our own workforce. A total of 88 ACT Public Service employees took part as mentors or mentees in the 24-25 program. The program achieved significant representation from participants from diverse backgrounds, including 40% from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds, 19% identifying as LGBTIQA+, 15% as identifying as people with a disability, and 3% as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander. By fostering talent internally, the ACT government is not only strengthening the public service, but also demonstrating our commitment to creating inclusive workplaces and driving cultural change across Canberra. The government has been and continues to be committed to supporting women and girls into historically male-dominated industries, with a particular focus on supporting women and girls in roles in the construction industry. We are committed to supporting long-term sustainability and a safer, more inclusive workplace culture in the local construction industry. In support of this, the government is adopting the culture standards for construction industry across all government-funded infrastructure projects. This standard promotes work-life balance, mental health and diversity. Since the 1st of November last year, the government has commenced encouraging suppliers to demonstrate their commitment to the culture standard. Moving forward, we will embed the culture standard into the ACT procurement framework for infrastructure projects. In this area, the government has also delivered the nation-leading Understanding Building and Construction program to improve career opportunities for women and gender diverse students in the construction industry. This program was piloted in 2022 and is now funded for continuation and expansion to 10 ACT schools from 2026, introducing 2,000 Year 8 students annually to construction careers and offering a tailored elective for 250 female and gender diverse students in years 9 to 10 through the Women in Construction course. The government has also been working to establish the Built for CBR Pathways Hub, which will connect job seekers, employers, training providers, creating a central space, both physical and virtual, for people to explore employment and training opportunities in building and construction, and for industry to engage with a diverse talent pool. Opening earlier this year, the hub will actively support underrepresented groups, including women and girls. Mr. Speaker, in 2025, the housing affordability and insecurity were among the most pressing issues for women in Canberra, particularly single women, older women, and those on low or insecure incomes. These challenges impact safety, mental health, and economic independence. The YWCA Canberra survey found housing affordability and cost of living were top concerns across all age groups. Alarmingly, more than 120 of the nearly 2,800 survey respondents had recently accessed homelessness services, and nearly half of these women were employed full-time. These findings highlight the growing complexity and immediacy of housing distress among working women. Stable housing is fundamental to wellbeing and economic security. That is why I'm pleased to report the construction of the Women's Housing Initiative at Strathnairn is nearing completion. This pilot program will offer single women aged between 25 and 45 affordable rental housing with a pathway to home ownership. By setting rents below market value and providing up to 10 years of tenancy stability, the program enables participants to save for a deposit and provides them with the option to purchase the home they are renting, supporting long-term tenancy and housing security. With support from the ACT Government, Marymead Catholic Care Canberra, Goulburn, Domestic Violence Crisis Service and Yarrabee Yerwang Child and Family Aboriginal Corporation have partnered to provide additional housing options for women with children who are experiencing family and domestic violence. The Crisis and Transitional Accommodation Program included the purchase of 8 units and houses and will include wraparound supports from these 3 local providers. The Woden Youth Foyer opens in 2026. Will also provide accommodation and support for 20 young people aged 16 to 24 years who are at risk of homeless, including women and children. The Youth Foyer assists in transitioning young people to independence by providing stable accommodation for up to 2 years, supported by mentoring, peer support and life coaching. Women remain overrepresented among low-income households. To address this, the government delivers programs that reduce energy hardship to improve thermal comfort and lower bills for vulnerable households, including social housing tenants, private renters and low-income homeowners. These initiatives support financial stability and contribute to a more sustainable future. The government is proud of the progress made through the delivery of the ACT Women's Plan and through other initiatives. The government remains committed to building a community where women and girls, and all those who identify as such, can thrive. Through collaboration, innovation and sustained investment, we're creating a Canberra that is safer, healthier and more inclusive for everyone. I am also very pleased to advise that nominations are currently open for the 2026 ACT Women's Awards, which we've recently refreshed to better recognise the breadth of women's contribution across the ACT, the nation and around the world. I encourage everyone here to think about the women who inspire you, your colleagues, mentors and friends, and to consider putting forward a nomination. Nominations close on the 10th of May. Finally, last week I was pleased to announce the new Women's Ministerial Council on Gender Equity, a group of outstanding women who will provide the government with advice on policy issues, focusing initially on the development of the next plan for women and girls in the ACT. A central part of this process will be broad and inclusive consultation to ensure the plan reflects the lived experience and priorities of all Canberrans. By working together, we can build on the progress achieved under the current Women's Plan and create a more inclusive, equitable ACT where people are safe, respected and empowered to achieve their full potential. I present a copy of the statement and move that the Assembly take note of the paper.
Thank you, Dr Patterson. The question is that the motion be agreed to. I call Ms Tough.
Mr Speaker, and I welcome the Minister's statement this morning on the status of women and girls, particularly highlighting the work around women's health this month. So this month is Endometriosis Awareness Month, and obviously I couldn't pass up a chance in the chamber to mention that. So it's really welcome to hear the work underway to reduce waiting times and access at the Canberra Endo Clinic at Canberra Hospital. It's really welcome to hear, and just putting it out there that submissions to the Social Policies Inquiry into endometriosis are still open for another couple of weeks. But I wanted mostly to talk about the topic of perinatal mental health, and the investment is really welcome. I am really looking forward to seeing the outcome of the feasibility study into the 6-bed perinatal mental health unit. I've heard many stories of mothers needing to travel to Sydney for inpatient perinatal mental health support, and the impact this then has on families who are left behind in Canberra while that takes place, particularly for families with older children who stay behind in Canberra with the other parent, with grandparents, looking after them, trying not to disturb their life too much, while mum and a new sibling are separated from them for potentially weeks at a time where it's already a lot for a family with a new sibling to go through. So, I'm really hopeful what this feasibility study finds, and that there can be a service in Canberra for these families not to be separated when additional perinatal mental health support is required. So I really welcome hearing where that's at. And because, like a lot of women's health, perinatal mental health is not something that's talked about a lot publicly or openly. And the work that the Perinatal Wellbeing Centre, the Perinatal Mental Health Alliance and Clyde Bucker, sorry if I've pronounced that wrong, Dreaming, it's just so important for mothers and their families. So I just want to put on the record that as a former client of the Perinatal Wellbeing Centre, I'll always be grateful for them and everything they do. There are so many wonderful things going on in that space to help mums and families, and I know I'm not alone in saying that that investment is really welcome, and it helps them reach so many women, so many families, and provide support. The support group I was part of and the ongoing fortnightly phone calls I used to get for nearly 2 years, it's just so just so life-changing. So it's really welcome. I could go on about so many other things in the statement. I won't this morning, but I thank the Minister for the statement and updating the chamber. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Thank you, Ms Tough. And the question is that the motion be agreed. All those of that opinion say aye. Contrary, no. I declare that the ayes have it, and I call the clerk.
Assembly Business Notice Number 1.
Ms Barry.
Mr Speaker, I move the motion standing in my name on the notice paper relating to reporting dates for the inquiry by the Standing Committee on Legal Affairs into the Family, Personal and Sexual Violence Legislation Amendment Bill 2025.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. I call Ms Barry.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, the Standing Committee on Legal Affairs is currently considering submissions received from the inquiry on the Family, Personal and Sexual Violence Legislation Amendment Bill 2025. The committee noted that there are several diverse range of views in the submissions that warrant deeper scrutiny, and has therefore decided to hold a public hearing for the inquiry on 20 March 2026. Given the report is due on 1 April 2026, and as an extension until 24 April 2026 will give enough time for the Hansard to be available and any answers to questions taken on notice to be given and received in time for proper consideration in the committee's report.
Thank you, Ms Barry. The question is that the motion be agreed to. Ms Chain.
Mr Speaker, the government will be supporting this and the next motion, obviously, and I think that the reasons that the chair of the committee has put forward are perfectly reasonable. committees are established precisely because some matters are complex, contested and deserving of careful examination, and certainly this bill and the bill referenced in the next motion are complex, and there are a range of views. I can't let the moment pass, however, without making the point that I feel that one can't, on the one hand, insist that complexity requires patience when a committee is doing its work, and on the other, suggest that complexity is no excuse when the executive is doing the same. And I think these are good examples of where these have been very complex to draft, and for the policy issues to be worked through to get it to this stage, let alone to the committee stage. And so I'm not making that point to diminish the important work of committees, Mr Speaker, and particularly not the Standing Committee on Legal Affairs, and certainly not to criticise members for seeking the time they believe is necessary to complete an inquiry properly. And I think the reasons that Ms Barry has laid out are absolutely reasonable, particularly in terms of wanting to have the appropriate amount of time to review the questions on notice and any further information that might need to be examined. Absolutely fair and proper. But it is just to make the simple point that delay is not always evidence of indifference, Mr Speaker, nor is time taken necessarily a sign of inaction. Very often it is a reflection of the care, rigour and responsibility that all of us expect from institutions charged with considering serious legal and policy questions, whether it's the executive or the legislature. And so I thank Ms Barry and the committee for being reasonable and wanting to work through the issues that have come through submissions in a very fair manner. And just note that in our support for this, we certainly encourage the same reflections when members in this place can be quick to judge the government on how quickly we might be working through a matter that is complex.
Thank you, Ms Chain. The question is that the motion be agreed to. In closing, Ms Barry?
Oh.
Well, we've got to deal with the first motion before we get to your second one.
Right, okay. I thank the Minister for her statement. I think she raises, concerns from the Executive's perspective. I think what the committee is trying to do here is resolve some of those very sticky problems that we've identified. As I indicated, there are very significant views from stakeholders who would normally support a scheme like this, so it would be interesting to tease that out and understand what the issues are. So I thank the Minister for her statement, and yes, it's duly noted.
Thank you, Ms Barron. The question is that the motion be agreed to. All those of that opinion say aye. To the contrary, no. I declare that the ayes have it, and I call the clerk.
Assembly Business Notice number 2.
Ms Barry.
Thank you. I move the motion standing in my name on the notice paper relating to the reporting date for the inquiry by the Standing Committee on Legal Affairs into Firearm Public Safety Amendment Bill 2026.
Thank you, Ms Barry. The question is that the motion be agreed to. I call Ms Barry.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, yesterday I made a statement under Standing Orders 246A on behalf of the Standing Committee on Legal Affairs to explain that the committee would undertake an inquiry into the Firearms Prohibition Order Amendment Bill 2026 by combining it into the existing inquiry on the Firearms Public Safety Amendment Bill 2026. I'm making this motion to extend the reporting date of the Firearms Public Safety Amendment Bill 2026 to align it with the reporting date of the Firearm Prohibition Order Amendment Bill 2026 so that both bills can be considered as part of the same inquiry. This motion is to extend the reporting date for the Firearms Public Safety Amendment Bill 2026 from 3 May 2026 to 24 May 2026. In acknowledgement of this, the committee has extended the existing submission deadline for the Firearm Public Safety Amendment Bill 2026 to 10 April 2026 so that stakeholders can have further time if they wish to also comment on the firearm prohibition order amendment bill 2026.
Thank you, Ms Barry. The question is that the motion be agreed to. All those of that opinion say aye. The contrary, no. I declare that the ayes have it, and I call Mr Cox.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I present Report 6 of the Standing Committee on the Integrity Commission and Statutory Office Holders, entitled Inquiry into the Government Agency's Campaign Advertising Amendment Bill, together with extracts of the relevant minutes of proceedings. This report was circulated to members pursuant to Standing Order 254C. I move that the report be noted.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Mr Cox.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. This is the 6th report of the Standing Committee on the Integrity Commission and Statutory Office Holders for the 11th Assembly. The Government Agency's Campaign Advertising Amendment Bill 2025 was presented in the Assembly on 4 December 2025, and the committee decided to inquire into the bill on 9 December 2025. The committee called for submissions from the public and from stakeholders on 9 December 2025 with a closing date of 30th of January 2026. The committee received 4 submissions. The committee makes recommendations for amendment to the bill and for a review of the operation of the Act following the next election, including to identify any unintended consequences arising from this bill's amendments. On behalf of the committee, I thank all submitters for their assistance to the committee and their contributions to this inquiry. I thank the other members of the committee, Mr Andrew Braddock MLA and Mr Tamus Werner-Gibbings MLA. I commend the report to the Assembly.
Thank you, Mr Cox. The question is that the motion be agreed to. Yeah, Mr Werner-Gibbings.
Thank you, Madam Assistant Speaker. I also, likewise, the Chair, I thank my colleagues, Chair Cox and Mr Braddock, and for the discussions that we've had around this report and the Secretariat for its production. I'm not standing up to oppose the report. It is admirable in its brevity and clarity. The bill, as it is, might eventually result in greater clarity of the definitions surrounding political material, and while that is fairly inside baseball, it will be a good outcome. However, when it comes to debating the bill, for my part, I urge my colleagues in the Assembly to pay very close attention to the proposed section 18 brackets 1A and brackets. This section requires that any government campaign initiated during Commonwealth pre-election periods be first approved by the Leader of the Opposition and the Leader of any party with more than 2 members in the Assembly, i.e. the Canberra Liberals and the ACT Greens. And this section does concern me. It concerns me because by bringing political parties into the day-to-day business of government functions, it is a definitional politicisation of government processes. I have faith in the judgment and integrity of the ACT public servants who make decisions about advertising of government services, and I applaud and support the non-political nature of the public service. I also have faith in the independent reviewer who is appointed to oversee and make non-political determinations on precisely this sort of matter. There is already robust checking of government material during pre-election periods, as the ACT government submission made clear, and that is made on a factual and impartial basis, not on the party political basis this section will foster. With that apprehension in mind, I will be very interested in the debate on this bill in due course. Thank you, Madam Assistant Speaker.
Thank you, Mr Werner-Gibbings. The question is that the motion be agreed. Those of that opinion say aye. Those of the contrary say no. I declare that the ayes have it. I call Mr Cox.
Thank you, Madam Assistant Speaker. Pursuant to Standing Order 246A, I wish to make a statement on behalf of the Standing Committee on the Integrity Commission and Statutory Office Holders relating to the referral of an inquiry into the ACT Integrity Commission on 25 February 2026. The terms of the referred inquiry are to consider the resourcing of the Integrity Commission, the implementation of the recommendations from the report of the Independent Review into the ACT's Integrity Commission Act 2018 by Mr Ian Govey, the potential use of taxpayer-funded legal assistance in respect of reports by the ACT Integrity Commissioner and other related matters. The Standing Committee on the Integrity Commissioner and Statutory Office Holders has always intended on conducting such an inquiry. The committee also seeks to consider, as part of this inquiry, the performance of the Integrity Commissioner since the Govey review was undertaken and the impact of the first tranche of legislative amendments passed in 2024. The committee has sought to time commencement of the inquiry with the implementation of the outstanding recommendations of the Govey review, which are expected to address the more substantive or time-intensive matters. The committee has been corresponding with the Chief Minister over the last year in relation to the timing of the legislative program in this regard and will commence the inquiry soon.
Thank you, Mr Cox. I call the clerk.
Executive business notice number 1.
Oh, Mr Steele.
Planning Legislation Amendment Bill 2026 together with an explanatory statement including its Human Rights Act compatibility statement.
A bill for an act to amend legislation about planning and for other purposes.
Question is that the bill be agreed to in
I
principle.
move that this bill be agreed to in principle.
The question is that the bill be agreed to in principle.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Steele.
Madam Assistant Speaker. The Planning Legislation Amendment Bill makes minor and technical amendments to the Planning Act 2023, the Planning General Regulation 2023 and the Planning Exempt Development Regulation 2023, as well as the Recovery of Lands Act 1929 and the Surveyors Act 2007. These amendments support the administration and delivery of the government's planning priorities, including increasing community engagement and transparency of government in decision-making, contemporising our statute book to reflect our city's values, and ensuring that public town planners have the right settings in place to be responsive and deliver on our ambitious planning goals for the Territory. Madam Assistant Speaker, I'd first like to speak to the amendments this bill will make to our planning laws. A key amendment is the creation of a new development exemption criterion to allow the construction of step-free access paths to single dwellings to ensure that the way we regulate development continues to support inclusion across our community. Under our current planning framework, the modifications necessary to achieve step-free access, including the installation of ramps, landings and fall prevention barriers, may require lodgement of a development application. This creates an unnecessary barrier for people seeking to make their homes safe, accessible and compliant. The introduction of this exemption criterion proposed in the bill reflects recent amendments to the National Construction Code which have been made to align with the Access Code and the Disability Access to Premises Buildings Standards 2010, and removal of this regulatory hurdle is in line with a key planning priority of the government to consider opportunities to expand exempt development pathways for lower risk development. Madam Assistant Speaker, the bill also improves notification requirements during public consultation for draft major plan amendments in the Planning Act 2023 and consequentially in the Planning General Regulation 2023 by requiring that adjoining lessees be notified whenever public consultation on a draft major plan amendment begins, not only when the consultation period is extended as is currently enacted. This ensures that people whose properties adjoin the affected land have timely information and the opportunity to provide informed feedback from the outset, and is aimed at strengthening transparency and community participation in planning outcomes progressed through major plan amendments to the Territory Plan. Madam Assistant Speaker, the bill also makes a number of other minor amendments to improve the operation and administration of the planning system. These include establishing clear and consistent time standards for assessing overshadowing on a neighbouring block for exempt developments. Although this threshold is already used in existing planning guidelines and technical specifications, inclusion in the regulations will provide consistency and certainty for applicants, assessors and neighbours alike. Moving the function of making technical specifications to support design guides and the Territory Plan from the Chief Planner to the Territory Planning Authority allows delegation to operational teams and ensures technical specifications support good design and amenity through responsiveness to the needs of the Territory. And it also ensures that a swimming pool is clearly defined in the Planning Exempt Development Regulation 2023 to enable the vital protections for swimming pool safety to be relevantly applied. Finally, Madam Assistant Speaker, the bill proposes to address several technical and typographical corrections to legislation within the planning and sustainable development portfolio to ensure that their currency. This includes amending outdated gendered language in the Recovery of Lands Act 1929 that no longer reflects the values of our time. These amendments play an important normative role in ensuring that our statute book is up to date with current drafting practices which reflect our community and the society that we want to build in the ACT. Madam Assistant Speaker, although the bill I'm introducing today is relatively minor and non-controversial, it demonstrates the government's commitment to ongoing review of our planning system to ensure that it's operating effectively and delivering intended outcomes which support the delivery of high-quality development. And I commend the bill to the Assembly.
Thank you, Mr. Steele. The question is that the bill be agreed to in principle.
Debate be adjourned.
Thank you. The question is that the debate be adjourned. Those of that opinion say aye. Those to the contrary say no. I declare that the ayes have it. The question now is that the resumption of the debate be made an order of the day for the next sitting. Those of that opinion say aye. Those to the contrary say no. I declare that the ayes have it. I understand it's the wish of the Assembly to suspend for lunch. Excellent. That being the case, the Chair would resume at 2 p.m.